had no idea that it was this much work. I was always a proponent of therapy, but I now realize psychedelics, to me, it's a great tool when needed, but it's definitely not a silver bullet, which I always rationally knew, but now I'm like, oh, I get it. It's not like it eases anything. If anything, it just shows you more clearly what you need to do, and you have to be present to do that work, because it's so easy to disengage and go online and scroll and not think about your problems, but think about your problems while you're scrolling.
Welcome to Modern Psychedelics, where we explore the transformations made possible through intentional engagement with psychedelics. This podcast will help you integrate high consciousness living into the everyday and deepen the work ignited by altered states. You can expect balanced and grounded conversations around therapeutic, ceremonial, and recreational containers. My name is Lana Pribic, your host and guide. I am a 3-time certified professional life coach, and I work with people who want to integrate higher levels of consciousness into their daily lives so they can feel more peace, fulfillment, and connection. After all, our time here on Earth is so brief, so let's make sure we're really living. The song you hear is called Lost Horizon by Peace Sign. All right, let's journey. Hello, and I'm extending you a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for spending some time here today. So the title of this episode may have caught your attention if you have experienced a very challenging or difficult psychedelic experience. Today, we are getting into the topic of when psychedelics make things worse. And my guest for today is Jessie. And I actually met Jessie through Enfold, where I went to go do my 5-MeO DMT experience. And I was catching up with Jessie one day over Zoom. We were just chatting, and she actually told me about her 5-MeO experience and about how hard it was for her and how it really made things really challenging for her for a period of time. So I was like, wow, this is fascinating. I want to know more. And I actually want to have her come on the podcast and share her story, share her struggles so that people feel less alone if they're going through that. And then also share some inspiration and some wisdom for getting through that. Jessie West lives at the intersection of chemistry, consciousness, and community. With a degree in chemistry serving as her foundational bedrock, Jessie has embarked on a journey that seamlessly integrates science with a deep reverence for the mysteries of the mind. Currently serving as the client services and operations lead at Enfold, Jessie brings a unique blend of analytical acumen and compassionate engagement to her role. Embodying the spirit of service with every interaction, Jessie infuses her work with a passion for creating meaningful connections and empowering others on their journey towards wholeness. I think you guys are really going to like Jessie as a person. She's very relatable. And what she actually went through was massive opening during her 5-MeO ceremony, where she just opened up to the full range of emotions to be experienced. And after that, she actually went back to her life and realized that there was so much pain and trauma that had been kind of buried below the surface that was now surfacing, asking for her to look at it, heal it. And what she shares with us in this interview is the story of her navigating that and her really looking at all of her stuff and all of her pain for a very long period of time and how that was very challenging for her. She tells us about how she experienced something called ego whiplash. That was a new term for me, and we actually talk about that in the episode. And she also experienced suicidal ideation, social isolation. She was not feeling like herself, and she was depressed for months after her psychedelic experience. But it definitely got better for her. So don't worry, there's definitely some hope in this episode. She shares with us how she got through it and the support that she enlisted and some of the practices and mindsets that helped her to navigate this very difficult time. She is on the other side and she is sharing her story with us so vulnerably, and it's just so empowering and validating. I think it's just very important to explore this topic because psychedelics don't always make things better, or sometimes they don't always make things better right away. Sometimes there is a really hard, really challenging integration period that follows. When I actually interviewed her, I was about 3 months into my 5-MeO integration, and it kind of just kept getting deeper and deeper for me. And I think my conversation with her actually triggered so much because in it, she talks about how some of her numbing mechanisms and behavioral patterns were simply not working anymore after 5-MeO. And I was like, wow, that's what's happening to me. And it really helped me come to terms with that and realize that there's a lot of changes videos that are asking to be made of me right now. So yeah, this episode was just really, really helpful for me. So I know it's going to be very helpful for you. She really talks about the nuances and intricacies that are involved with going through a massive psychedelic medicine experience such as 5 and the ups and downs of integration that follows. So I know you guys are going to feel so validated by this. If you are listening to this episode and you think that someone might benefit from hearing it, please share it. Share it on social media if your followers would benefit from this. And yeah, please just share it as far and wide as possible because this is such an important topic that is not talked about enough. And please come and leave a comment on Instagram. You guys, that algorithm over there has got me. I don't know if I'm censored or what, but the engagement is really low over there. If you want to leave me a comment about how you enjoyed this episode and how you related to it, please do that on the latest post over there on Instagram. Oh, gone are the days of just rapid growth on that platform. But either way, I so appreciate you being here and taking the time to consume this information, whether or not you've been through a challenging experience. Either way, it's just going to bring an awareness to the realities of psychedelic work. It's definitely not all love and light over here. And as always, I am onboarding new clients into my one-on-one coaching program. So if you're looking for a psychedelics informed life coach who is very well trained, knows what she's doing, and can really hold you through your transformation and understands the tenderness involved in needing to be held in such a way during this time for you, please get in touch with me. I have a 6-month coaching program that is very powerful and it's changed a lot of lives. I can confidently say that. Read some of the testimonials on my website and see if you see yourself in any of the people that I've worked with before. I will leave the links to check out my coaching program in the show notes, and you can apply to work with me, book a discovery call to see if it's a good fit. And as always, if this episode or any of the episodes, if you've been here for a long time and you want to send me some love, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. A 5-star rating and review goes such a long way in helping the show get on the charts. And if you're a Spotify listener, go ahead and just tap those 5 stars if you're a fan of the show. All right, guys, I'm sending you a big hug, big love, and I'll catch you on the other side with Jessie. Hey, Jessie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Lana. Thank you.
Well, let's just start with telling people how we met and how this conversation came to be. So you work for Enfold, the 5-MeO retreat center, and we had a call about a month ago just catching up on the partnership and all of that. And you mentioned that you had your own experience, and I wanted to bring you onto the show to share about it with people.
Yeah, I think everybody has their own unique experience, and I think in general, we're more willing to share the shiny parts than the more rugged, challenging aspects. So yeah,
that was what really piqued my attention when you were sharing, because you actually had a really challenging and difficult experience, which, like you just said, many people don't talk about. So thank you for coming on and being willing to be vulnerable and open and share that with people, because I'm sure many people listening have also had really hard experiences with psychedelics because they don't always make things better right away. Before we get started, do you want to just introduce yourself to the audience, and you can include anything that you feel you want to share to just help the listeners understand who you are, where you're coming from?
Yeah, totally. My name is Jessie. I work for Enfold. I do a lot of their sales and operations, but often I work quite intimately with clients throughout their process of getting onboarded and then afterwards. And you'll see me at multiple points if anyone were to go to a retreat. But before all that, I had gone through my own personal experience with Enfold and got to experience the medicine and also the long integration tail that comes with 5-MeO DMT.
What led you to try 5-MeO? Where were you at in your life?
Yeah, great question. I started working for Enfold in the fall, and I had no intention of doing 5-MeO DMT. I've only ever heard terrible things, and it wasn't until honestly, I was like, this is a scary thing, and it wasn't until working for them and building a relationship with both Steve and Austin and seeing them work with clients, and even just speaking with clients before and after, and everybody being like, this is something you need to try. One of them literally was like, you need to do this. But more so just hearing about the profound changes that people were experiencing led me to be more open to it. And then one day I just got the call and I was just like, Steve, I want to do a retreat. And so I signed up for one and away I went.
I bet they were pretty happy to hear that, because I feel like it's probably really important if you're working with clients who are doing the medicine to have the experience yourself. It would just allow you to connect with them so much more deeply.
100%. It's allowed me to connect so much more deeply with Enfold itself and the mission, but to be able to explain, which I think to like an ethical standard of like what you're really signing up for, and making sure that people do feel very prepared for it, because they do quite a deep pre-screening process to make sure that like the people that are signing up for it are ready for this type of experience. And I think that's allowed me to really step into more of that role.
So you were working with clients, you heard some of their stories, you were seeing the transformations, and you thought, I think I want to do this. So when you decided to do it, what were the changes that you were looking to make, and what intentions did you bring to the experience?
Yeah. I had started doing therapy quite consistently before all this and had tried large doses of psilocybin and psychedelics. So I went in naively in a way, being like, oh, those integrations weren't that crazy. Actually only ever have beautiful experiences on really connecting with love and the universe, and I've never really had a challenging time. So I went into that thinking, okay, it'll be similar. And then my intention going in actually was just to connect with love. I was really feeling stuck in life. I had done what I thought was the way to do life. Like I was extremely successful before that and in multiple domains, and I was just constantly doing things. I had a large amount of friends, constantly socializing and being told like I'm doing great, but all I could feel was like this deep sadness and like a fake veneer of, wow, I really don't even know myself. I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, and had been chasing so many different rabbits, or whatever the saying is, to go and try to find this elusive happiness that they all thought of, which I thought was in the external. So I went in there just thinking, I just want to connect with love and peace. And that was it. And that's a big intention.
5-MeO is definitely a good medicine for that intention. What was the experience like? Can you share a little bit about what the actual ceremony and the retreat was like, what you learned from it and took away from it?
Totally. Anyone who doesn't know Enfold itself, it's hard to really put into words the magnitude that property will bring to you. Like you can see it online, it looks aesthetically just pleasing and very beautiful, but there's some sort of like energy or powerful like presence when you're there, and you feel very grounded. So when I got there, I felt like more calm. I work remotely for Enfold, so I think that could also, like, I don't work at the property very often. So when I got there, that was nice. The actual ceremony, I was really scared to do it because, to be honest, I've come from a very corporate background, and I was like, how is my bosses gonna see me like in such a vulnerable position? And so I came with a lot of guarding and very not trusting of it. Okay, where is this going to go? But they do a beautiful job at making you feel even at peace. And for somebody who like does not trust easily, is super afraid of what people will think, and only wants to come off in a very specific light, that like Steve and Austin were able to let me feel comfortable enough to let that down so I can try to experience the 5-MeO DMT as authentically as possible. And I would say that my trips were really beautiful. I didn't move really at all. Some people move a lot. I just basically vibrated. I think they called me a corpse at one point. I just couldn't move. And there was parts of it that were really hard, and like I cried a lot, but I also laughed a lot and really connected to this really deep place of love. And it came to this thing where I started like yelling in a good way, like, my parents love me, they really love me. And I just remember repeating that and like just being so aware that that was the biggest wound that I don't think I realized was I went my whole life, oh my god, I might cry, not thinking my parents like truly loved me, was not planning on the tears.
That's how powerful 5-MeO is. Sometimes even just talking about it brings you right back to it.
Yeah, it was really beautiful and really grieving that process afterwards of like, I went my whole time resisting love. Like I had memories or like downloads of like, I had an ex-boyfriend who I was with for 5 years and just saw, wow, he truly loved me, and how much I've rejected every moment of that. And just seeing how I do that again and again in life was like this like replay of like, I rejected my parents' love from like childhood. That's more nuanced than that, and just reject it. But yeah, and just seeing how that showed up in my life was a pattern of rejecting and closing myself off.
Wow, that's really powerful to just really feel like, wow, I'm actually truly loved, and how did I not see this before? And I'm sure you were able to see all the ways that showed up for you, and how this belief that was subconscious, it sounds like, that you're not loved, showed up in your life, and how like it showed up in your actions and the way that you operated in the world and the decisions that you made.
100%. And I think it all comes down to this core belief of, and I think a lot of us on different levels think that we're unworthy and unlovable. And it was so funny how I've gone my whole life blind to that. Because we're just like a fish in water. You don't know you're in water. I'm like, this is just what life is. It's just like self-hatred. I didn't even know that I hated myself, really. I didn't even know that I didn't feel safe in my own body until after. It was like this whole beginning to live again experience after I did 5 and realizing how disconnected I was to my entire life.
Okay, so it sounds like you had a overall fruitful experience that you learned a lot during. So you mentioned to me when we were talking that the integration was really hard for you and that you faced a lot of challenges. What happened immediately after the retreat, and at what point did things start to feel challenging for you?
I would say immediately after the retreat, I think what I would describe it as like a free state. I was just very apathetic and numb. I didn't even think I realized that. Like, I was just not really feeling anything. I felt different for sure, but it wasn't until maybe a few weeks had gone by that I realized how tired I was and how I just didn't want to hang out with friends anymore, which is very unlike me. I was constantly filling my schedule up. Never really wanted to leave the house. Very unlike me. I used to run insane amounts of kilometers in the morning or move or go to yoga, and I was just like wanted to stay in bed and kind of slipped into a really deep depression. And then it just kept getting worse from there. Started getting panic attacks, was crying all the time, just felt, okay, this is it. If this is what life is going to be like, I don't want to live this existence anymore. And it just was like this completely encapsulating experience of just absolute doom and gloom and sadness that was coming out of me. I just couldn't stop tears from coming out, and it was just like a flood of sadness and pain, which seemingly came out of nowhere. But when I finally opened up to my family, they said, when did this start? They remember being on the phone. I think I've had this my entire life. I don't think I've ever once allowed myself to feel all this pain and sadness, and now it's just like the floodgates are open, and it's just like this raw experience of years and years of repressed pain.
Wow. I have chills as you're talking about that. So were you blasted open with love and kind of blasted open to the depth of the human experience and all the emotions that are possible within the 5-MeO experience, and then going back to your life? It sounds like you were finally allowing yourself or able to feel all of the pain and depression and sadness and grief that you had swept under the rug and kind of avoided because you were keeping yourself busy with friends and working out and all of that stuff. Is that kind of what was going on?
Yeah, I don't know if this is just my own recount of it. That's what it seems like to me that occurred. There's different schools of thoughts that had ego whiplash afterwards, but really what it felt like was I tapped into like pure love and connectedness, felt that, and thought, finally, like, this is done. And then coming home to realizing, oh, I'm still me. I still have all my problems, and I can't hide anymore. I used to have a lot of coping mechanisms that just no longer worked. One of them was like, I wouldn't say it was a love relationship, but I had a strong dependency on food. Like, my whole life has been like seen through the eyes of fitness and food. And it came to the point where I just would be still doing like binge eating is what it's called, and being so aware of what I was doing and being like, this isn't even working anymore. Like, I can't even numb myself. I'm just like, no matter where I hid or try to go around, it was like this entire painful experience just nothing was working. So then it just, yeah. Wow. Then I had to address that.
So after 5-MeO, you went back to some of these coping mechanisms and then realized that they were no longer working. What made you realize they were no longer working? What was different for you?
Yeah, just the acute awareness, being completely aware of what I was doing. Typically when I would do the coping mechanisms, it's almost as a way to disconnect from your body and shut off. But as I would even just engorge with food, I was like, I'm like still really present to this, and that doesn't feel, I was like still connected to my body, and I was like, oh, deep shame about what I'm doing, realizing I'm not being calmed down or soothed by it, and just actually really aware of every moment I was doing was like, wow, I'm actually just hurting myself.
Wow. That resonates. Yeah. You mentioned ego backlash? What do you mean by
ego
that?
whiplash. From my understanding of it is you have this beautiful experience, your ego kind of dissolves because you feel like you're dying, and you come back and immediately your ego gets back on and it's like, that wasn't safe, and it tries to protect you in whatever way it can. And for me, it was just like, I didn't want to share or connect. So even the next day, there's an integration day and they get you to do a group share, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pass. I don't want to share. Didn't really want to talk to anybody, just avoided and closed off. And that's what happened even when I went back. Like, I just was like, that was too much. Like, that's not real. And all these thoughts kept going in my head and just closing myself off from the world because it just felt too, I don't know, unsafe. I don't think I was fully aware even that I was closing myself off. I just was like, oh, I don't want to leave the house anymore.
So as you're sharing about like the food specifically and the numbing, and then realizing that it was no longer doing what it used to do because you're so aware of it, as you were sharing about that, I had just so many chills in my body because it just resonates so deeply, because I feel that I am going through that right now as well. Same thing. I've always, like, for me, it's really sugar. I've always known I've had an issue with sugar, but I would just do it and it would medicate me and it would work. And after 5-MeO, there was a period of time where I wasn't consuming as much sugar, but now I am again. And actually this last month or so, these last few weeks, it's been so intense in realizing how much I am harming myself. And I'm noticing that inner struggle within myself of, why am I doing this, yet I'm choosing to continue doing something that's harming me. It's really interesting. So is this something, you work with a lot of 5-MeO clients, is this something that's very common?
Are common about going back to old habits, or?
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, that resistance within yourself when you're noticing that the self-medication or the coping mechanisms no longer are actually working, because you're just like, you have like another level of awareness that wasn't there before about what you're actually doing to yourself.
I like to think of it like you're just more connected to your body, like that, which is the awareness. You can feel with almost every cell what you're doing, and it's uncomfortable because the whole reason they exist is so to alleviate you from the comfort. And I think it's common in the sense that, and please keep in mind, I'm no expert. Like Steve and Austin work more hand on hand with integration and whatnot. So I just want to preface all that. I would say it's common in the sense that you'll be more aware of it. And I think initially it's almost easy not to engage in the behaviors because you're still in like this acute phase of, oh, like I'm feeling completely different. And then falling back into those habits is very normal. I would say that, but not in the way that they help or work anymore.
So timeline wise, after the retreat ended, how long were you in this period of feeling challenged by the experience?
I would say deeply in that place was about 4 months. And then I started feeling relief as we went on. And it would be about the 8 or 9 month mark where I felt like I finally started to land and enjoy life in a more authentic manner, like where I didn't feel like I was like forcing myself to enjoy or be like, I am grateful. Do you know what I mean? When you say the gratitude things, you're like, I'm grateful for this and that, but it's sometimes you're just doing it to remind yourself so you can have a moment of alleviation. But then there's other times where you're like, I am just so grateful, and it didn't have to come from a forced place. Like I would say that didn't happen until the 9 month mark where I was like, oh, I'm not forcing myself to live in a happy place.
So it was about a 9 month pretty intense integration process for you. So take us through those 9 months. What was going on for you? Can you be a little more specific about the challenges that you faced, how you held space for yourself during that time, and just a little bit more about your experience?
Yeah, I would say that first came the freeze, the apathy. And with that, when you do invest in such a treatment of 5-MeO DMT experience or like a process like this, like you really do, even if you say you have no expectations, you have expectations. Like, of course, you signed on it, you bought it for a reason. And that reason is that you think that it's going to alleviate or change or whatever. So I think I was grappling with telling myself, this has worked. I am okay. Like I had tapped in such a beautiful experience. It was amazing. Like the trip was great. And I realized my parents love me and I'm good. And then it wasn't until maybe a month in where I was like, okay, I'm not good. I think a lot of that was just my mind telling me I was great and like life is good. And then that's when I started feeling really big signs of depression, not wanting to engage with people, crying a lot, having major panic attacks. I'd say it was about 2 months, it felt like, of just like basically crying every single day and waking up not wanting to get out of bed, doing cold plunges in the middle of basically winter here in Vancouver because I would be up all night just thinking of ways to end the suffering and not trusting myself not to engage in one of those. And the only time I could get like a moment of silence is if I dunked my head in like really cold water and like, the freeze that you get. And I was like, finally, no words. I would have a lot of thoughts of, okay, kill yourself. Like, this is the only way to get over this, and there's no way out of this. And just dealing with that, like suicidal ideation and depression would be my major symptoms.
Wow. So what were the resources or tools that you sought out, if any, or were you just going through this alone? What kind of support did you have?
I had a lot of support, thankfully. I think number one was this like lesson of, especially if you're somebody who does not like to accept help, which I hate accepting help. It's to me a sign of weakness. That's how I used to view it. And I didn't ever want people to know that I was like dealing with this. So trusting that it was okay to relinquish the ego and it doesn't mean anything to reach out to people. My community, my friends and family definitely supported me during this time. And I'll elaborate a little bit more. Practices such as yoga and just simple walking and just being okay with taking life a little slower and trusting that this is just part of a process that eventually will end. And then the other last thing was doing a lot of reading. I read a ton about existentialism and the universe and the meaning of life and listened to a ton of podcasts, and I think that really helped contain everything. So first of all, it was a ton of pain and confusion and you just feeling like you're not grounded. You don't even know who you are anymore. And reading those things and listening helped just have a large container of, okay, this is a normal existential meltdown in a way, and that there is some sort of explanation as to like why this is happening, and life doesn't inherently have meaning, but an awakening is this or that. So that helped for me there. And then reaching out eventually to Steve and Austin. That was hard because I wonder if other people feel this way, but they're your facilitators and they're so amazing and they're so beautiful and their experience is usually amazing at Enfold. And telling them that you're going through something hard almost felt like a letdown, and that's how I felt. And maybe that's how I feel a lot. And there's a lot of parallels there. I don't want to let my parents down. I don't want to let my family down. In a way, they are like people that I look up to. So it's just, I don't want to let them down. But having them and trusting them and hearing what they're saying, that this is a normal process, and being supportive there helps. And we have a ton of resources on our website, and they'll be able to, if you reach out to them, be able to refer to somebody who will be able to help with whatever unique circumstances you're going through. And then having my friends and family just come over, bring me food sometimes, or go on a walk, even though all I did was like sob, but telling me that it's okay. I think a lot of it was like, oh my God, I'm ruining their experience, but they would be like, it's fine. This helps me by making sure that you're okay. And then eventually I went traveling, which also helped because it was like I needed to get out of this like daily world that I would see, which is like my room and like the habits and places I would go, and realize that there's so much more to the life than just your small habitual existence.
Did you know that your problems don't come from the situations or circumstances themselves? Your problems come from how you approach them. More specifically, your problems come from the level of consciousness that you approach them with. It's pretty simple. Here's how it works. Anytime something happens to us, we can approach the situation from various levels of consciousness. You can come from a low level of consciousness that perpetuates the problem and keeps you stuck, drained, hopeless, and under stress. Or you can come from a high level of consciousness that allows you to move forward because you can more easily tap into creative solutions and access your intuition. The good news is that at any given time, you can choose how you show up and therefore have a massive impact on how your life unfolds. The trick is to be aware of all of the options available to you, which most of us aren't, which is why most people feel stuck and unable to move forward. But that job you hate, your codependent relationship, or the numbing anxiety of not knowing your purpose in life can be the exact thing that moves you forward and gives you clarity, as long as you're approaching it from a high level of consciousness. In my coaching program, I will help you become hyper aware of your current approach and help you shift to higher levels of consciousness. By addressing blockages keeping you stuck, which are often subconscious, we unlock flow, acceptance, peace, joy, all of those things we want more of in life. And this is not woo-woo. I am using a research-validated coaching method that's benefited thousands and has been studied and developed over 25 years plus. Whether you're corporate, spirit or spiritual or both, this is an approach that offers practical integration into everyday life. And it happens to pair just brilliantly with psychedelic work. High consciousness living is achievable daily, not just during psychedelic experiences. Psychedelics illuminate the path, but it's our job to walk it every day. My coaching program will provide you with a grounded and operational way to integrate high consciousness into your daily life. I am currently onboarding new souls into my practice. So if you would like to learn more about the program, just visit modernpsychedelics.net/coaching. I've linked that for you in the show notes. Or if you are ready to apply and get on a call with me to see if this program is right for you, just go to modernpsychedelics.net/apply. That's modernpsychedelics.net/apply. All right. I can't wait to hear from you. Let's get back to the episode. First of all, the fact that you're doing this podcast today and sharing your story publicly, like, what a testament to how far you've come from someone who was not able to ask for help or show that she was going through something challenging. I mean, wow. That's amazing progress. So you're in the depths of it. There's suicidal ideation. You're really struggling with energy, motivation, mood. There's two things there that I want to ask about. So number one, what was your anchor during that time to hold on to hope and to continue trusting and to not give up on yourself?
My anchor has always been that the end is the end. When I was having suicidal ideation, what I told myself is like, that's the absolute end. And that is always an option if I really absolutely need it, is to like end my life. But until then, I will try what I need to try every single day to try to ground myself. And if that means that the most I can do that day is just get out of bed and make myself food or talk to somebody, then that's what it's going to be. And so I just took my expectations of myself and made it extremely microscopic, which I think they teach that in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called like behavioral activation. Start with really small behaviors and activate those, compound from there. But I always believed that I did this for a reason. My intention was that I wanted to have a different existence, basically. And the fact that I was feeling all these things and having that deep feeling of like flashbacks of like me as a kid and being in pain and being like, wow, I was really sad during that time. It gave me hope that this was all happening for a reason. And I'm a chemist by trade. I've studied science. I at first was very resistant to this idea of something that cannot be explained by a scientific method. And I was like, at first I was like, no way. It's metabolized within 3 hours. It has nothing to do with that. This is woo-woo. And then slowly accepting the process of like, this is 5-MeO-DMT. That is the only thing that changed in my life that caused me to feel all this stuff. So I just held out hope from my intention from the very beginning that I'm like, I wanted a change. And while this is not what I imagined, it is a change because I am forced to deal with it. So that was what anchored me. Don't know if that's very helpful for people. It wasn't some...
It sounds like it was like a trusting
mantra.
yourself, trusting that you did this for a reason and that there's going to be a point to it.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So, and number two, do you think that the existential crisis, existential breakdown, and having to literally accept the love and support from those around you was part of your integration, because that was the message that you got in the ceremony? I am loved, I am supported. And then actually integrating that was asking for the help, asking for the love, and being shown and actually accepting it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm smiling.
Yeah, you're smiling big.
I just want to first say that like I am nowhere near this whole like self-acceptance of love and me and whatever, but I'm like a hell of a lot further than I've ever been. And I'm trying to read with Tara Brach of Radical Acceptance, and I'm just like, damn, I do not radically accept a lot of parts of me. But it's a process. But
you are not really alone in that.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's like it's just so much easier to hate yourself than to like be like, I love this part of me.
It is and it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of ways it isn't, but yeah, carry on.
For me, that's like how I normally, for me, by that, I just want to say, if you had ever been productive or through negative reinforcement, it's so hard to change that. For me, the reason I always excelled in school is because I was just like, it was just like a negative thought process that kind of got you whipping the horse to get you the cart moving. And the opposite of like, if you just truly accept and love and change out of that, that will also facilitate change, is such a paradigm shift that I'm like coming around to, but I do catch myself falling back into negative thought patterns. But I digress. The actual reason I was smiling is because I'm so proud of my family. They held me with such care, and I don't know who I'd be without them right now. And I refused to see my mom for a couple of years and really never connected with my family. Just like really wanted, like even at family events, I just wanted to go to bed at like 8 p.m. and I just was like, okay, gotta go into my bedroom downstairs when I was younger. And now it's like, I went on a family vacation. I've had Christmas and family vacations with them since, and they were such loving experiences. And I had the best birthday, which I normally cry every single birthday and tell them like, usually hate that. And it was just like this most loving birthday with my family in Mexico. And it was just like, wow, they do love and care for me, and the support that they've been showing me is a testament to the change they've done as humans, but also to the testament to I've been able to like open my heart to them and really truly feel like when my mom says she loves me, that okay, she loves me. That. And then the other one is all the time I've never been able to like really hold down a relationship, in the sense that I was constantly just like leaving people, just like gone. Like I just like 2 months over, next. I've had longer relationships, but it was never fully engaged in a healthy way. And I would say like now I've been able to, for the first time, really like deeply open my heart to somebody, and it's not been easy, but it's been super beautiful to watch what I would consider a very healthy relationship of communication, care, support, security, even just come to fruition. And that's something I don't think I even conceptualized in my mind was possible. And that's like kudos to like me and to him. But I was just like, wow, if it wasn't for 5MEO, who knows if I would have been able to even address that the way I used to date and really be private and closed off was even a problem. I thought it was just kind of like, this is cool, I'm in my 20s, but realizing, wow, I'm deeply unfulfilled when I do this.
Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations on getting there. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Opening yourself up.
Yeah. Steve has a thing he says, and I think with psychedelics in general, people think it's like the phrase, like, it's like 10 years of therapy. And the way he reframes this to kind of go in with that expectation is, sure, it is 10 years of therapy, but think of compressing that 10-year time frame down to months. So you're going to have to like go through all that. It's not like you're just like, okay, 10 years of therapy done, the outcome is here. It's like 10 years of therapy, compression of time, and you're just going to have to deal with all the pain, the emotions that would have normally have come up with in a very short amount of time. And it's intense, and you have to be ready to experience that. So it's like, while I'm super happy that I'm at the place that I'm at, it wasn't without extreme pain and intention that I had to go through.
Yeah, I know that's a really good way to put it, and also a really good like disclaimer for people who do want to do a really intense dive with psychedelics, such as doing 5MEO. Yeah, you gotta be prepared for that period of integration, and I'm in the middle of it right now, and yeah, it is. There are highs, but there are also lows. Like, I'm feeling so validated right now from hearing you share your story. So thank you. And I know that the listeners will be as well. So yeah, it's like the process is initiated by the ceremony, by the retreat, and then it like, this is what we mean when we talk about integration, especially with these like really high dose, high impact experiences.
100%. I've been humbled by 5MEO DMT, but I also want to caveat all that with, I've also seen multiple guests come through and never have this type of experience. So while I think it's a typical experience for those with extreme repression of like grief or anger or pain or trauma in their past, it's definitely not something that everyone has to go through. So in case someone's listening to this and was like, oh, I don't want to do 5 because of that, really think about your own unique circumstances and what your past was like.
Yeah, and these extreme challenges are rarer, definitely much more rare, but also important to know because, hey, it could be you, right? And we just got to know what we're signing up for. I think we need more psychedelic literacy on these challenging psychedelic experiences. I know for the first 2 years of doing this podcast, I just ignored the challenges and the fact that a lot of people really have a hard time and a lot of people really struggle. And I'm just wanting to bring more light and awareness to that. So you were going through this really intense therapeutic healing process, existential meltdown, as you called it. What were some of the changes that you slowly started making over time? For example, did your relationship with binge eating change? Did your relationship with some of those like coping mechanisms that were no longer working for you change?
Yeah, I'd say my 2 biggest things that if I had to change would have been binge eating. That's a big coping mechanism and deep amount of shame there. The fact that I'm even saying this on a podcast. Something that I used to have a lot of shame around. And the other one would have been about like this negative cycle of thinking. The binge eating has definitely subsided. I would say that I still deal with this like framing of like food and exercise, but it no longer consumes me. Like I can go out for dinner and or eat a muffin and not feel like my life is like I might as well eat all the muffins, or feel really like strict around food. I would say that I don't typically feel this like a giant compulsion to binge eat as much anymore. Maybe like once every 8 months, that's what I'm giving, just because if it's extremely stressful, that's the only way I know how to dysregulate myself. But for the most part, I wouldn't say that I really struggle with binge eating. And how I even started addressing that was, one, becoming aware of what I was doing. So I got this whole new refound awareness and connection to my body. But then I started actually going to I went to a group therapy for it, which actually helped a lot. Is like they say healing happens in community, and seeing other people share their story, realize like, oh, okay, like I'm not a filthy pig. Those are words I would use. And it is more normal than we think. It's just something that like isn't. So like accepting and hearing other people talk about it allows you to have more compassion for yourself. And I would say the negative thought cycle is still occurring. It's not like it goes away overnight, but by doing like a lot of reading and catching and awareness, I honestly think a lot of it just comes back to awareness. It's like, just be aware of what you're thinking. And in moments of crises in my head, it's almost like I can't even slow my mind down enough to even know what I'm thinking. And there's just like loops of thoughts that keep going down. So I've lately have been like, how do I can just slow down to even just listen to one of those sentences and just like calm my body down. So the other day after swimming, I was like in this cycle in my head, and I was just like, okay, we're gonna sit in the car and just be like, what can we slow our brain down enough to like even just make sense of one of the things that are going in my head. And I think that like slowing down and acceptance and awareness is how I've been approaching most things that I want to change at the moment.
Yeah, and I just want to validate you that you're definitely not alone with the binge eating. I'm also guilty of that. So that's 2 people on this podcast that have or are struggling with that. I mean, I can't even...
Yeah.
Jesse, I can't even buy, like, my kryptonite is Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Like, if I buy one of those, like, it is gone. It's not,
oh my God, yeah.
It's not going to be, like, put back in the fridge and saved for later. No, so I totally get it, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It will come to a day where you can, and you celebrate those small wins. And there's some days that you do, and it doesn't work out. You eat the whole thing. It's okay. I was talking to my guy friend about this, and he's just like, I think, because he's like, he thinks it's the thought process that goes behind it. He's like, I will eat an entire tub of ice cream and not think about it, think like negative thoughts about it. But I'm like, it's the compulsion you feel where you're doing it and you're not enjoying it anymore, but you can't stop. And that's what I'm like, that's what binge eating is. It's like where you blank out, and it's this compulsion of like, it's never enough, even though you're like, this is enough. So I get it, but start celebrating the small wins. I mean, I don't know, I think accepting where you are is where you are has helped me a lot too. I can't rush to the finish line, but like, I'll accept this is where I'm at and this is the best I can do.
Beautiful. So at what point did things start feeling better and lifting for you? And what do you think helped you lift out of the challenges?
I did my retreat in early February. May was when I first felt like a small relief.
Of 20 or?
Oh, of 2023.
Oh, okay. So it was recent.
This was last year.
Okay.
Yeah. It was in like October of 2023 was when I really felt, oh, I'm back to normal. And now I have a lot on my integration plate, as Steve would say, but to do it in a sober way. I don't think more medicine equals better. I'm just like working with what I have and realizing, oh, I have a lot to work with in this sober reality. I felt better a little bit in May. Honestly, I'm privileged to say that I was able to go on a trip to Costa Rica by myself and just spent 2 weeks just sitting with it and just trying to like decompress. And that was really a big turning point for me. I had already started to feel better, but getting out of my routines and of the home that I live in and the work that I do and the things that I define myself with allowed myself some space to like just relax. And I think a lot of it is just harder does not equal better. So it's sometimes we're so stringent, like if only we meditated more and we did all these gratitude journaling every day, then I would have been better. But it's actually sometimes it's just allowing and being and just trying to enjoy the small things is what allowed me to really start to crawl my way back into like contentment.
Yeah.
Or stabilization.
That sounds like a really honestly level-headed and grounded approach to doing this hard work and navigating through the challenges.
Yeah. I had no idea that it was this much work. I was always a proponent of therapy, but I now realize psychedelics, to me, the way I look at it is it's a great tool when needed, but it's definitely not a silver bullet, which I always rationally knew, but now I'm like, oh, I get it. These experiences allow you to work back into your normal reality in a way that you would not have been able to have that perspective, but the work is still there. It's not like it eases anything. If anything, it just shows you more clearly what you need to do, and you have to be present to do that work, because it's so easy to disengage and go online and scroll and not think about your problems, but think about your problems while you're scrolling. It's a strange thing we do.
Yeah, or at least it's going to be subconsciously looping in the background there while we're trying to numb it. Looking back on the challenging period of time, what did you learn from that? What are some lessons that you are taking away from that?
This is going to sound so hippie, but all I can think of is, and a lot of clients will say this afterwards, like, all you need is love, but it's like, all you need is love. And if you just approach things with love, things get easier. Realizing we're all connected. Self-love is super important, but also loving others. And my biggest learning lesson to calm my defenses. I'm a very defensive person. I'm always on edge. I'm always like scanning to see if there was going to be trauma or negativity or something bad was going to happen. Is just understanding that actually we're all innately good and that we don't actually have that much control when we do that. So if I can just look at things with love in space, and I see that the person's not gonna hurt me or is not saying that out of a place to like necessarily manipulate me or something, then I'm actually able to engage better in life. So a lot of it was just like love and assuming the best in other people so that I can like learn to love and trust people and connect with them.
I can't help but to notice that was the exact intention that you had for the 5-MeO experience. Just took a lot longer to get there, didn't it?
Yeah, people would say on the outside, like, I have a huge friend group and I love them so deeply, but I would say that to me, I never understood why I had a good friend group. And number two, I never understood why people wanted to hang out all the time, even though I did it as a way of just like buying time, but I was never there. But then after now, I'm just like, oh, I get why people hang out. Like, it's fun to connect on a genuine level. You don't have to go in there like rigid, pretending, who should I be for these people? If I'm just me, they still love me for me. And it's not like I don't have to be a chameleon. So it's just, wow, nothing's changed, but everything's changed.
People can't love you unless you are showing up as yourself, because otherwise they love a version of you that isn't you, that's not really you.
That's not you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful lesson. So for people who are listening, who are maybe navigating a challenging integration experience or post-ecstatic blues, as Jules Evan calls it, what words of advice or wisdom would you offer to them, and how would you encourage them to keep going?
One thing really depends on like how bluesy they are. One is reach out to somebody. I don't care if it's a healthcare professional or your internet or a friend or a family member, but I think just sometimes reaching out is the basis of what I think brings a lot of joy and is the first part of healing, is connection with somebody. If you're really struggling, you're just really in your head and you feel activated all the time. One practice that really helped me was set a timer for 10 minutes and journal everything that just comes to mind and just like brain dump, like don't even think about it. And I found after that, I felt a lot of clarity and calmness to be able to be like, okay, what do I actually need in this moment? Because I think sometimes we actually have no idea what we actually need. We just feel so overwhelmed with everything and you're pushed and pulled in your head into so many different directions that taking those 10 minutes to do that allowed me to be like, oh, I think right now all I need is actually to go on a walk. Or I think right now I need to go meet a friend for a coffee or a decaf coffee. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah, when you said the 10-minute brain dump, I was like, ooh, I should do that after we get off this call. That's a really good tip.
Yeah, some guy told me that one time. He's like, I just don't know what these journal prompts are. And sometimes I'm like, I look at a journal, I have no idea what to do. So I just set a timer and just said whatever comes up. And I was like, wow, that helps. Because I think the thing that stops me from journaling sometimes is I don't even know what to journal about. And sometimes I even start the sentence like, I don't even know what to journal about. And then suddenly it's just like the free flowing comes out. And I think the act of using a pen to paper, incredible. It doesn't do the same type of thing for me when I type it out, but if you're really good with like computers or not computers, I'm fine with a computer, but if that's how you, I don't know, process information, go ahead. But for me, like writing on hard paper does it.
Yeah, there's something about it that helps focus your thoughts and just take away some of the noise and like really focus in on what is going on in there. So yeah, that's a great tip. You said that you have a full integration plate. What's integration looking like for you these days now that you're on the other side?
Self-love, baby. much just reading Tara Brach and listening to a lot of her podcasts, and recently been very called to just randomly meditate. And that's like not me at all. I don't meditate. I don't do breath work, which is hilarious because I work for Enfold. But lately I've like, I just need 10 minutes to meditate. Or I did called my friend who's a meditation leader, and he led me through meditation. So right now it's been a lot about just like sitting and trying to become aware of my thought process so that I can like have more compassion and self-love, so that I can start to engage in this world from a place of wholeness, instead of thinking that I constantly need to change something in order for me to feel whole. So that's currently my integration plate that surprisingly takes up a lot of energy, because changing those thought processes, sometimes you're not even aware that's like happening, and that you're looking at the world in that regard.
The work really never ends, but it's just important to continue engaging in it. So it sounds like you're really doing that. And looking back, what are you most grateful for about the whole experience? The good and the bad, the ups and the downs?
Oh, most grateful for. Weirdly, when anyone asks me those things, like most grateful or most whatever, I always just go whatever comes to mind first. And the first thing that came to mind was my mom. And my dad, of course, but my mom specifically I had a very tumultuous relationship with, and surprisingly, that's the thing that came to mind. She's been a really key player in my whole getting my life grounded again.
She's probably the person in the world that loves you the most out of everyone. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing like mama's love. Beautiful. Is there anything else that you feel inspired to share with the listeners today?
But just in general with psychedelics, just really think deeply before you engage in large doses. I think it's different than recreational use, but of course with recreational use. And I truly believe that you'll get a strong calling, and you'll know that calling is a genuine calling. There's that calling where you feel like you need to like do with something right away. But if it's like a true calling, you'll be able to have some space to wait to embark on that journey. And I just think sometimes a lot of people rush into psychedelics and are left with, whoa, what was that? And unclear of like where to go from there. So I would just like to preface that they're serious endeavors and experiences that could really alter the way you see the world. And if you're ready for it, that's amazing. Go on and tackle it, but truly feel like you're in a stable-ish place to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more passionate actually about preparation. There's a lot of focus on integration, but yeah, the prep work, and I love working with clients also to help them prep. It's so important as well, that prep work, really addressing your expectations. And yeah, it's really good advice for people. Well, thank you so much, Jessie, for sharing, for being vulnerable. And I'm just celebrating you so much for doing this, because it sounds like a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have even entertained the idea of sharing your story in this way.
100%. Yeah. Thank you, Lana. You have a beautiful way of letting people also feel very comfortable sharing. And I think that if it was anyone else asking, I don't know if I would have, but yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I know this is going to be a great service to listeners. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting the show. To stay in touch, sign up for my mailing list, which can be found in the show notes or on modernpsychedelics.net. If this episode sparked something within, please let me know by leaving a review of the Modern Psychedelics podcast on Apple and Spotify. This really helps to share these messages with those who need them, which is the whole reason why I do what I do. And if you haven't already, come join the ongoing conversation over on Instagram with other beautiful souls. We have an incredible and conscious community over at the handle Modern Psychedelics. And don't forget that the work begins after you come back down to earth. And I'm standing shoulder to shoulder, doing it with you. This episode is produced in collaboration with Film with Integrity. They are a values-forward production studio providing end-to-end production from concept to content. They do event video, documentary series, commercial and marketing videos, and of course, podcast production. If you are working on a project that deserves quality of production and content without sacrificing heart and soul, visit filmwithintegrity.com to check out their beautiful work and get in touch with their team.